Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back. So we're going to talk to you today about USB 3.2 Gen 1 and USB 3.2 Gen 2. And then of course we have a 2x2. Interesting. I don't know. Too many numbers, too many variants, too many of too much the same. All right, so I've got a website up on my computer here, and it talks a little bit about this sort of thing, so this way I don't have to memorize stuff. So when it comes to USB 3.2 Gen 1, which is technically what they call Gen 1 by 2, that's 10 gigabits, okay? It's nearly identical to USB 3.2 Gen 2, okay? The difference is that while USB 3.2 Gen 2 has a single 10 gigabit data lane, 3.2 Gen 1 by 2 uses two 5 gigabit lanes to give us a total of 10 gigabits. Of course, they say that shouldn't matter to you as an end user, but you may see that USB 3.2 Gen 1.2 terminology. This is where it becomes a real mind screw, to be honest. Because when you get into the Gen 2, which is a 2 by 2, that gives you a 20 gigabit per second, okay, or two 10 gigabit per second lanes to give you 20. What does this mean in total? Well, the lesser being the 10 gigabit setups, these are going to allow you somewhere around, depending on if it's on a Mac or a PC, you're looking at about 1,000 and a little bit extra maybe on the read, and just under 1,000 on the write on regular 3.2, which is this thing. Okay. Now, whether or not that's Gen 1 or Gen 2, they don't get specific on the Amazon site. I would have to look a little bit deeper into Sabrent's website, which I'm gonna say right now it's going to be a 1.1 by 2 because it is only 10 gigabits. It's not the 20. And we know this because we swap them to different computers and we find out, right? So on a Mac, of course, we plug it in. Now, the Macs only have USB 3.1. Now, regardless of generation 1 or 2, it's going to be the same speed, right? So Apple is still using 3.1 even on their M1s and M2s, which means 10 gigabit. Now, on the same port, of course, is also Thunderbolt, but the Thunderbolt port is also backwards downward, okay? So not a big deal there. When it comes to our PCs, we have the same thing. If you have a Thunderbolt port on your PC, it's going to be backwards compatible down the line to whatever it's capable of doing. Now, my particular Asus laptop, it has 3.2 Gen 2, which 3.2 Gen 2, according to everything I'm finding on Google, is saying 20 gigabit because it's 2 by 2. So it doesn't necessarily have to say 2 by 2 on the spec sheet. It doesn't necessarily have to say 2 by 2 anywhere within your computer software, other than, it says it's 3.2 Gen 2. So that's got me kind of curious because this is 3.2, but it's not going to be a Gen 2 if what the internet is saying it's 2 by 2, right? Because they otherwise they'd say 3.2 1 by 2, and this is just 3.2, which is more than likely our 1 by 2, because if it was 2 by 2, then I would be seeing speeds with even this drive that's inside this case. I would be seeing speeds of about 2,000 plus on the read and approximately about the same on the write, depending on what the actual write speeds are on the drive. Now, this is where it's got my curiosity up as to my Asus TUF 17, which is only a 1-year-old computer on the market, and it's got Thunderbolt 4 in it. It's got PCI Express 4. It also has another PCI Express 3 slot. So I have two NVMe M.2 slots. One's a 3, one's a 4. And so I bought this fastest drive on earth, right? My particular one is rated at 7,000 read and writes. And yep, it's really super close. But it's also internally. Now, if I take my my fastest, baddest drive on earth and I put it into this case, I'm lucky to see about 850s off the back of my Mac, according to Blackmagic Disk Speed Test, which does show lower numbers than what the PC actually shows with its disk program, Crystal Disk. So I ran it on Crystal Disk as well, and again, I'm seeing just over 1,000 with that PCI Express 4 massive fast card. In this case, what's in here right now is actually a half a terabyte that has a rated read speed of 3,000, and the write speed is lesser. I can't remember exactly the numbers I got. I've got a lot of videos on this, so you can always check them out and you'll find out what this thing actually is doing as an external. As an internal, though, it was really, really good speeds, like super good. And that drive was actually in the PCI Express 4 slot, which does go backwards compatible to 3, because this is PCIe 3 that's inside this case. This creates a lot of confusion for people, and I really get it. I mean, I don't know everything either, and there are some things that I don't keep up on all the time. And I find out about them thanks to YouTube. And then I look into them. And then I compare notes of this is different and that's different. And then I compile information. I memorize as much as I can. Because I want to stick that in my long-term memory, because my short-term checked out a long time ago. As many of us, we all have a very short-term memory, right? So we want to stick that into our long-term storage in our brain. So anyway. So when you're looking for a drive for your computer, you need to know your computer. This is a problem I'm finding on Amazon right now. I was looking at a 3.2 Gen 2x2 case to do some experimenting with, because I'm kind of curious, is it just a 1x2 or is it a 2x2? Because all the computer tells me, all the website tells me for my computer is it's 3.2 Gen 2. So it's kind of like, whatever, we'll figure this out. So I'm going to order the case. I found a case to order. There was one chap on there that actually noticed the speed difference, and it's double what he got with a regular 3.2 case and even a 3.1 case. Okay, so there are definitely the differences there. So when you actually have a proper port that's 3.2 2x2, then you are going to benefit from the speed difference with the exact same drive. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this drive out of here and we're going to pop it in, and we're going to speed test it on the PC. We're also going to test it in the new case on the Mac, because I know the Mac is not going to be able to push the speeds very hard, because that's only 3.1, which is only 10 gigabits. The new case is 20. But see, when it comes to your drives, that's a little bit different story with the drives. Thunderbolt 4, you would want a PCI Express 4 card in there if you want the fastest possible speeds that you can get externally without having a powered Thunderbolt case. But if you're using an unpowered Thunderbolt case, you're going to see lower speeds, obviously, on that super bad fast drive, which we may end up investing in a second one just because of the experimenting down the road that I want to do with Thunderbolt stuff. Because I do have Thunderbolt 4 on my Mac, and I can take advantage of that on the Mac or on the PC, because they both have Thunderbolt 4. But like I said, I only have 3.1 for the USB-C side on the Mac, but I do have the 3.2 Gen 2 on the PC. But what I need to find out is it just a straight out Gen 2 and that's all there is to it? Because I can't get enough information off the internet, because like I said, it all refers as 2x2. So I want to know, is that actually a 2x2? Because if it is, then I can double the horsepower for as little as $60 for the case. This case was $40, and it's a 3.2. And that's actually a good price for the Sabrent case. These are pretty heavy duty built. They're really decent. Right now I'm also experimenting with another part on these cases. You'll notice on the inside lid of this Sabrent case, you've got this heat dissipator. There's a plasticky kind of thing that you can pull off, and I'm guessing we're supposed to pull that off for it to work as a heat sink. Not that I did. I left them both alone, and I've been doing some testing today to see, what are the heat differences. Was that actually a functional piece that's helping, or is it better to, pull up on that little piece of plastic and haul it off? It's kind of I don't know, right? There's no instructions about this particular thing, and if you're supposed to pull that piece off or not, because usually that's a film covering that protects the material till you need to use it. Now, whether or not it's actually touching a drive, who knows? This already has a heat shield, so basically I'm getting double the heat shielding. And this drive sitting at idle runs about 30-31 degrees when it's on the computer. When it's off, we're actually running some pretty cool temperatures. Actually, we're at 28 degrees right now. And that's been unplugged from the computer for a little bit. So it's basically room temperature, or, well, actually a little bit above, because, well, actually not far off. It's 27 degrees in here right now. So it's within 1 degree. But if we go and we plug this thing in, and we just let it sit idle doing nothing for a couple of minutes, we'll take another temperature check. These laser temperature gauge things, these things are like awesome. You got to get yourself one. This one's made by Mastercraft. I'm in Canada, so Canadian Tire has these things. They're wonderful. They're great for our hobby grade RCers. They're great for checking thermos on stuff properly, that sort of thing. But anyway, you really should contact the manufacturer of your computer to find out what version of USB-C/Thunderbolt, or if you even have Thunderbolt. And you don't have to have Thunderbolt to actually have USB-C 3.2 Gen 2x2. Okay, just when I bought my Asus, it came with Thunderbolt 4 and all this USB stuff, and voila, you know, it's kind of like when I bought the HP here. This is strictly USB-C only. There is no Thunderbolt support for this drive, and so, you know, and it's also 3.1. It's not 3.2. My Asus is the only one with 3.2 Gen 2. So it's kind of like, you know, the information. It's another thing. It really mind boggles people, right? So I'm trying to help you guys out as best as I can. But contact the manufacturer for your computer, especially laptops. I mean, desktops usually don't have Thunderbolt ports in them. Desktops usually also don't have Type-C ports in them either. But, you know, things can be changing. I haven't even looked at a newer desktop in probably a couple of years now, since I bought my last one, which definitely did not come with Type-C or any kind of Thunderbolt port on it. That would have to be a card I'd have to buy for that system. And that was a few years ago. And I haven't even bothered, like I said, to look at even the newer PCs to see what they're actually coming with. But laptops is where we are going to most commonly see USB-C and Thunderbolt ports, both on Mac and PC computers or Windows computers. That's where we're going to see them most commonly. And more people are going the laptop route nowadays than desktops, because let's face it, you know, a desktop takes up a lot of space, where a laptop, you can still have a big screen as an external screen. I got a 32-inch sitting on my gamer laptop because I want a big screen for playing games in here, right? And so it's kind of set up like a desktop, more or less, right? And but for portable use, I have it as a regular laptop. Unplug a cable and off I go, right? So you need to know this before you start investing money into external, either pre-made SSD and NVMe drives, or whether you're going to get into a Thunderbolt system. You know, because people say, well, Thunderbolt's better. Just go out and buy a Thunderbolt drive. Not even taking into consideration, you may have a computer that doesn't have Thunderbolt. You go and you buy a Thunderbolt drive and, oh, it doesn't work. Well, you don't have Thunderbolt. Okay, so that's pretty obvious, right? So it does mess with a lot of people. It certainly has been a mess with a few people on Amazon, where at least the one guy did say, this is a fantastic case. It works perfect. Showed us the results on screen of his speed test, and it's like, yep, that's 3.2 2x2, right? So Gen 2x2. Where the others are complaining, saying, oh, this is fraudulent, it doesn't do it, or it doesn't even work. Well, maybe they should have looked into their computers to find out the specs on their computers, because that's the only thing that would be the common denominator here with everybody else, right? Except for this one guy right now. So I thought, you know what? If he's getting this, I'll try this case. Not a ton of reviews on it, and I'm trying to avoid too much on reviews. I mean, the Sabrin cases are the most highly recommended ones, you know, kicking around, and it's kind of like, well, I'll give it a shot. And you know what? They're really good. I really like them. They're fantastic. So yeah, I'd recommend that You know, if you're looking for USB 3.2 Gen 1 speeds at least, which is 10 gigabits, then yeah, fantastic case. Just don't spend too much money on an NVMe as far as speed goes, because you're not going to crack even 1100 megabits per second. They even tell you on the website, right up at least, that the drive caps out at up to 1000 megabits per second. So yeah, try and buy a slower speeded drive. Still get your storage that you want, you know, if you can, for the amount of storage space, but go for the slower drives, because there's no point if you are stuck with, you know, 3.1 or 3.2, which that 3.2 will go backwards, like right to like 3.0, right? They do go backwards, which is kind of nice. You're going to be stuck, right? So, you know, you're going to want not too fast of a drive, because it becomes a waste of money for that speed that you'll never see. So try and get something probably, I don't know, 2000 read and write. You'll be fine and happy with that case, because you're only going to see half of that anyways. But there are limits to how slow of a drive we can actually go. But you can get B&M key SATA drives that are SSD, so not having to do the M.2 NVMe. You can get the SATA BM keys, which are slower, and they work quite fine, and they're going to give you the results that you're after as far as the maximum of that case capacity, providing that drive has enough speed to go along with the case's capacity and your current bus. So anyways, that's kind of where we're at. Now let's do a temperature check on this drive. So we're sitting at about 33 degrees, just sitting idle, doing nothing. Now, what I want to do before we go, if we got time, yes we do. Looks like we're not going too heavy on you guys for time. Select target drive, and I got to see my screen here. I'm using my phone as continuity camera. Okay, 500, and we'll speed check the drive. Now we're going to run this through a couple cycles. Now I already know this drive gets usually 800s read and write, and it's pretty consistent that way. Our first shot here, we got 818.6. On the right, the read is 847.5. You're going to see variable numbers, little bits here and there at a time, because, you know, the drive's going to heat up more, obviously. You know, we're going to see like a little over 1,000 on this same exact drive in that exact case on my PC. We're going to see around a little over 1,000, because, you know, Crystal Disk reports a little bit faster speeds than what Disk Speed Test does by Blackmagic Design. I don't know why it doesn't show truer speeds, but, you know, I mean, these are synthetic benchmark programs. You're only going to get so much out of synthetics. Real world testing is where you actually see what the real world transfer rates are. Now, I'm also putting this under a 5 gigabyte stress, where most commonly, and I do see this on every PC user's video on YouTube, they're not even putting it under the higher stress loads. It's all 1 gigabit. And I'm kind of like, you might want to, you know, raise that up to like 4 gigabytes, you know, instead of 1 gigabyte. Because 1 gigabyte stress test is nothing. It doesn't really work the drive hard. In the real world, you're going to work your drive a little harder. Now, I've done the 1 gigabyte load test on this and didn't see that much variable in the numbers. So it's kind of like you know, I mean, it's really not that much different. So I guess I can understand in a sense. So anyway, so we've had a couple rounds here. We're just finishing off a write here at 817.2, and we're going to do one more read test. And we're at like 847.7. Okay, so let's check the temperatures. And we're sitting about 33.8, just bouncing to 34 degrees. So, not bad. I mean, my Mac Mini pretty much idles at about 30-something degrees anyways. Just, you know, even when it's doing a heavy load job, it really doesn't get that hot. So, actually, I'll tell you right now, CPU... So my CPU efficiency cores are at 37 degrees, 38.2 on my performance cores. My GPU proximity is at 34 degrees. Neural Engine's at 30, etc., etc., etc. But this is using a program called MaxFan Speed Control. and I just kind of have it do its own thing. It idles at 1700 RPM all the time, and it can max out to 44.99. So if I want to run my system cooler ahead of time in preparation for a heavy load, I can actually raise that fan speed up a lot more, pre-cool it more, and then when it does get under a heavy load, it's not going to really break much more than idling temperatures. So depending on what I'm doing though. But anyways, so that's pretty much about it. Hopefully this has helped you understand a little bit better. So remember, just get a hold of the manufacturer for your computer. Find out exactly what bus line is actually in your computer. They know even more than the average technician, which even the average technician doesn't really know. They would be calling the manufacturer anyhow. So you might as well just do it yourself. Just call the manufacturer, say, hey, what version of USB is in this? And they're going to say, okay, what's your serial number? What's your model number for your computer? Blah, blah, blah. And they'll tell you exactly what you have for USB version in your Type-C port. Okay, and if you, in fact, even have a Thunderbolt port, they will tell you that too. And then at least you can shop around for the appropriate case, as well as an appropriate, NVMe M.2 drive, okay, or going into the B&M key drives as well. It's kind of, because you don't want to, like I said, you don't want to spend money senselessly, so you don't buy more horsepower than you need, especially if your computer can't make use of it. That's the big thing. It's kind of like Apple computers, we're at 3.1. You're better off just go buy a Thunderbolt case and put an NVMe M.2 in there that can keep up to the Thunderbolt 4 speeds. Investigate that too on the Thunderbolt cases, what kind of speeds people are getting with the faster drives, and then kind of what to shop around for an NVMe. Because like I said, PCI Express 4.0 drives that are rated for 7,000 plus megabits per second are going to be kind of pointless to put into an external Thunderbolt case unless it's a powered case, because you're still lacking that amperage that you need in order to take full advantage of that 40 gigabit lanes, right? And I think we're seeing the same thing happening too with our regular Type-C drives. They're only 900 milliamps being fed from the port, and these drives want 1, 2, and even Samsung drives want like upwards to over 3 amps. We can't get that out of the back end of a computer. We got to figure out how else could we get more amperage in, and how much amperage will the case accept. Well, first, let's find out how much more amperage we can get out of something like a dock, because a dock could improve your amperage, which is going to improve your speed. Not by a whole lot, but depends on the dock and what kind of amperage it can output to its ports. Can it go beyond 900? And some docks actually can. But to tell you which ones, I don't know. But I know they can, and they do. It's just you got to find them, and they're going to cost you money. So, and for that little bit of extra speed that even I saw, because I don't know what dock the guy had, but it was obvious that he did get more amperage out to the drive, because it did speed up more through his dock as opposed to direct connect, which is usually the best way. That showed me that he's getting a little bit more amperage fed into that drive. So he's getting at least even an amp for that little bit of extra speed. Or sorry, he got an extra 100 milliamps for the extra speed that he got out of the drive externally from the dock to the computer that way. That made a difference. So who knows? But anyways, that's what I got for you. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. And we'll definitely catch you on the next one. See ya.